space explorer Zork trying to learn everything he can about Earth people. And there he goes. He must have seen something he didn't understand. He's landing on the Earth. What did you see?
Something really interesting. 4 years ago, when I visited the Earth, I took this picture. See how little these two Earth people are? Well, look at the same people now. They're a lot bigger. So that's what I want to learn about. How Earth people get to be different sizes.
Aren't there Zork people of different sizes on your planet? Don't you have small babies, for instance?
No, on my planet everyone is exactly the same size. We never change.
Well, with Earth people it's very different. They all start off as very small babies. Then, as they get older, they grow into adults.
Earth people grow? Wait a minute. I can't see them growing.
Earth people don't usually notice themselves growing either. That's because they grow very slowly. But once in a while, something tells them it's happening. For instance, sometimes they realize their clothes don't fit anymore. And if they take measurements of their height or weight every few months, after a while they can see the measurements change.
But I don't get it. What happens when people grow? They don't grow new parts, do they?
No. Even when Earth people are little, they have their main body parts. As they grow, those parts change size.
The parts change size?
That's right. And that makes the person bigger.
Wait a minute. I just figured something out. When people grow, they must not just get larger, like this. If they did, adult Earth people would look like big babies.
You're right. Big Earth people don't look like babies. That's because as people grow larger, they also change shape. Babies have round faces and bodies. But as Earth people get bigger, they lose most of that roundness. Their bodies get to be much longer and thinner. And as you can see, they change other ways, too.
But how does all that happen? Do people just grow a little bit each day, year after year?
Yes, they do, but it's not always the same amount. Earth people grow much faster at some ages than they do at other ages. They grow the fastest when they're babies. In their first 4 months, babies get to be twice as heavy as they were when they were born, and several inches longer.
That doesn't sound like such fast growing.
It doesn't? Well, just imagine what would happen if a baby, like this little girl, kept growing that fast. In the next 4 months, she'd get to weigh twice as much again. And again in the next 4 months. And so on. By the time she was 7 years old, she would weigh almost 15 million pounds. She'd be the size of a department store.
Oh, I see what you mean. So Earth people must not keep growing as fast as they do when they're babies.
Right. They grow much more slowly after their first year. Then when people are around 7 to 9 years old, they grow faster again, though of course not nearly as fast as when they're babies. When they're around 10, growing speeds up again. And again when they're teenagers.
I see. Do all Earth people grow exactly the same way?
No, they all grow a little differently. That's one of the wonderful things about them. For instance, look at this group of 7-year-olds.
Oh, some are a lot taller than the others, even though they're all the same age.
Right. It's normal for them to be different sizes. Now look at this group of 10-year-olds.
A lot of the girls look like they're bigger than the boys. Why is that?
Around that age, many girls grow faster than boys. But a couple of years later, most boys grow faster, and usually end up a little larger.
Is there some way to tell how much a person will grow?
There's no way to tell for sure. Often Earth people with tall parents will grow up to be tall, and people with shorter parents will grow up to be shorter. But it doesn't always work that way.
Well, can people help themselves grow?
They can mainly by staying healthy, by eating nutritious foods, and getting plenty of sleep and exercise.
Oh, so if people do that, they can keep growing all their lives, right?
Well, not exactly. When people are somewhere between 18 and 25 years old, they more or less stop growing.
What do you mean people more or less stop growing?
Even though people's bodies do stop getting bigger and taller, they keep growing some other ways. I'll show you what I mean. People's bodies are made of very tiny parts called cells. Use your Zork microvision and you can see them.
Oh, there they are.
People have billions and billions of cells, and some of them are always getting old and dying. That happens all the time, even in young people. So an Earth person's body always has to be growing new cells to replace the ones that die.
And that kind of growing goes on for all of a person's life?
Right. Some of every Earth person's skin cells, for instance, are always dying and falling off and being replaced by new cells growing from the inside.
What? You mean Earth people are always getting new skin?
Yes, and the same with the millions of bone cells each person has. Many of them die and get replaced every day. It takes about 2 years for all of them to be replaced.
So each Earth person really gets a new skeleton every 2 years?
Exactly.
I have a question. I noticed that after Earth people comb their hair, sometimes there's hair left in the comb. Why is that? Are Earth people falling apart?
No, that happens because of how hair grows. If you look very closely at a person's hair, you'll see that only some of the hairs are growing. It's because of the growing hairs, of course, that people sometimes need haircuts. Some other hairs have stopped growing, and after a time they fall out. It's some of those that come out in the comb. And at the same time, some new hairs are growing in to take the place of the ones that are gone. All that is always going on in Earth people, and it's all perfectly normal. In fact, it keeps going on all of people's lives. That's why people need to keep getting haircuts, even when they're older.
And fingernails and toenails, they keep growing too, don't they?
Correct. If people went their whole lives without cutting their fingernails and toenails, and if the nails didn't break off, they would get to be many feet long.
I noticed there's another way people keep growing sometimes too. That's when an Earth person gets heavier and bigger around.
Right. People gain weight when they eat more food than their bodies can use. Their bodies store the extra in fat cells. That makes the fat cells bigger, and that makes the person bigger. Then if a person eats less food, the body uses up more of the food stored in the fat cells, and the person loses weight. Another healthier way people can gain weight is this. Instead of making their fat cells bigger by overeating, they can make their muscle cells bigger by doing certain kinds of exercises.
Okay, let me see if I understand this. Earth people's bodies start out small, and then they grow and change shape for many years until they're fully grown. But even then, some parts keep growing, like hair and fingernails and toenails. And all during a person's life, new cells grow to replace old ones. Earth people sure do have wonderful bodies. I especially like their hair.
You do? I can give you some if you'd like.
I sure would. Thank you. Do you think this hair will grow? It doesn't seem to be growing. Maybe there's something wrong with it. I don't think it's going to grow. It isn't getting any longer. It's just sitting on my head. It's supposed to be growing. I don't think it's going to grow.